Next presenter is Christy Johnson. So it was idea in P&W, now it's P&W idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so make sure I got it right. So P&W idea, and you're gonna tell them what idea stands for? Awesome, okay, please welcome Christy. She's amazing.
Thank you. I was in Melbourne today. I think a few of you may have heard me speak at different things. So I brought Jasmine and Linnea along. They're part of the Artemis team. IDEA stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access. I'm a giant dork. I would hang out and research in books and papers all the time. And there's so much research that shows diverse organizations are a lot more innovative, and there's a whole bunch of ways that you can count this. But then if you look at how companies hire, they usually do what's easy. This is why we're a huge fan of Brett and what he's doing with making it easier for people to connect. But what that leads to is very homogenous groups. And the problem with that is that you don't have as much motivation to learn, you're not seeing as much conflict, you don't prepare as much because you're anticipating people are going to think similarly. And so you can end up with all sorts of problems with your business idea. Well, let me flip here, all the things. All right. So why did we even decide to exist? Well, when we started looking around at the Pacific Northwest, and we work throughout the United States as well as internationally, I come from a consulting firm called McKinsey as well, so we're doing a lot of international work. The lack of diversity in the C-level, board members here, as well as even EVP, SVP, is much lower than other regions, yet nobody really seems to talk about it. And we're specifically thinking about both gender and race, and this region has a harder time talking about race. But if you look at Warren Buffett's quote, pretty smart guy, right? He's like, if you believe that there's great talent out there and intelligence is equally distributed, then if you're overlooking on a completely set of races and genders, you're missing out on great talent. So that was part of what it is that we focused on. The research as to why it matters. There we go. I'll let Linnea talk a little bit about how the group is structured, but it's very grassroots by design, and there's systematic biases that exist in the systems that currently exist. There's a whole bunch of things, so those are listed up on the board here. And what the group is trying to do is saying, instead of like trying to make diversity, inclusion, equity, access be a competitive advantage to a company, what if as a region we all came together and decided as government leaders at the federal, state, and local level, and nonprofits of all sizes, and then in businesses as well as funders, we could try to solve some solutions. So I'm going to let Linnea talk a little bit about what the model looks like. It's essentially crowdsourcing. So I'll hand it over to Linnea.
Hi, so what's great about communities of practice is that they often have free-flowing agendas. However, what I think is really unique about P&W IDEA is that they utilize a grand round structure, so very similar to the medical field. So if anyone's seen Grey's Anatomy before, I'm a huge fan, based in Seattle. Derek Shepard, one of the main doctors, will bring in all the interns, all the attendees to one room with all the files there, being basically like, this is a big issue, I can't do it by myself, it's really unique, it's really complicated, we need all hands on deck. So very similarly, with this group, we'll bring everyone together, and a caseload manager will basically present a case, something potentially like, how do you hire and retain diverse employees and how to keep them, which is super important, but also a really difficult thing to tackle just as one person. So the whole group together will brainstorm, discuss, analyze, ask probing questions, and then come up with best practices and strategies to tackle a really important issue that's hard to do by yourself. So what's great about Grand Rounds is that it forces people to work across industries and companies to come up with the best practices and strategies to tackle these hard issues that we all do in all of our industries, whether it's tech, whether it's consulting, whether it's healthcare. So like Christy mentioned, we have people from many different industries. We have people who represent federal, state, and local governments, as well as nonprofits and investors such as angel investors and VCs from small, medium to large businesses. We have individuals representing, great, awesome. We have individuals representing many different expertise, including 28 different industries, and I will pass it on to Jasmine.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. The group has been growing since 2016, and we're actively looking for people to join our group. We really want to stress that this is a problem beyond HR, and this affects any sort of individual in any position. And so you're all invited. We really want to be representative of the society here in the Pacific Northwest. So we want to encourage more diverse perspectives and people to come join the group and share your ideas. One of the things that founded this group was less talk and more action. And while talking is really important, we really want to be able to make actionable things happen in our own communities. So if you want to learn more, if you want to be a part of this group, we encourage you to let us know. The information is on the slide. Thank you.
So I just want to mention, I realize the information is on the bottom of the slide. There's no way for you to know that if anyone's behind the first row, they're not going to see that because it's the bottom. But they can see your faces, so they can come up and
Yes.
find out. So it is a LinkedIn group. So if they go to LinkedIn and look for, would they look for Artemis Company, or would they look for Idea PNW to find it on LinkedIn?
Yeah, you can always message me if you can't find it. I'm like, is it a closed group or an open? But it's Idea in the Pacific Northwest. There's all sorts of things that people post, like a guy's daughter is in a hockey team that's dual gender, but they're like not letting her play because they think she'll have more. There's a whole bunch of interesting questions that end up getting posed in the group. So if you're interested in participating in that, we'd love to have you join. It is the LinkedIn group. If it's closed, let one of the three of us know, and we can grant you access as well. Do you have questions for us? If we get 3, right? Or you get 3? Yes.
Do you guys do work with legislation as well?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you guys do work with local legislation as well?
Do we do work with local legislation? Different policy people will come in. I think one of the most fascinating was sometimes representation from Senator Patty Murray's, and she's very influential. So there's something the Senate was looking to float, and so they brought it to the meeting, and the business people were like, there's no way we'd vote for that. And then the governor's office had somebody there, and so like it was real time, here's how policy gets made and put forward, that ended up being described in this room. It's mostly like who shows up and what they bring to the group. Does that help? Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about the roles that people have? Like who's in the room at what level? Where are they on their diversity inclusion journey? And then what's the topics?
Yeah, so it can be anybody at any level. So there we can have executives, people starting out, we say college graduates. So across the board, all kinds of individuals in varying positions. I mentioned before that it's not just HR, so it'll be people involved in different spheres of influence within their organization. So that's the kind of people that go there. And sorry, what was the second part? What kind of?
What topics related to diversity inclusion?
I'll have you answer that one.
I was like, I probably have heard almost all of it. It's a real range. So we've had some people from K-12 and post-secondary. There was this fascinating conversation around like sexual harassment of somebody who's in development. How do you deal with that? And then it turned into like, how much are they donating? And then people were like, why are we asking that? So somebody who was from one of the large nonprofits was able to describe what they had done. A lot of things about ERGs lately, like should you compensate people who are part of ERGs? How should you structure those? What do you do if the leadership team's saying they're committed, but then their actions or like microaggressions, things that they're saying don't align? How do you call that out? Hiring's always a big topic, especially in certain fields like AI, data scientists, data strategists right now. So it's a real range. I think that's part of the fun. You never know what's going to come up topic-wise of policy things that we mentioned. The governor's office had some data that they were going to release that they brought to the group, and they wanted thoughts on how to best present it. So it's a real range of topics.
The third part of the question, because equity, belonging, diversity, inclusion is such a huge evolving space, and it can be intimidating to talk about. Where are the people in the room in terms of their, where are they in that journey of diversity inclusion? Is everyone an expert? Do you need to be an expert to be a diverse?
You want to answer? Sure. You don't have to be an expert to be in the room. There's certainly some experts in the room, right? So there's people who deeply study this and know this. There's a lot of people who are brand new on their journey, and anybody's welcome, but we do want people to be respectful. So if somebody asks a question like, why does diversity even matter? Could it be diversity of thought? Or some things that people might be like, oh, you're new on your journey? That's okay. We want you to come. There were some things a couple years ago around Me Too that were fascinating, and we were really glad that people brought them up in the group. So we mean for it to be a safe space where wherever you are in your journey, you can connect. And then I think that's what's a really powerful part of the meetings is people are in all different spots, right? And those connections after the fact end up being really powerful. Kind of like what Brent does. Any other questions for us? Or are we out of time?
One more I would just like you to mention, some people might not know what ERG is. So you could explain what that is.
Sure. So employee resource groups are what they are. Lots of times, this was another fascinating one. Actually, one of the major companies in town decided they're getting rid of their ERGs, and the woman who was having to announce that was in the group, and it wasn't public yet, and she wanted some guidance on how to discuss it. Oftentimes, they're sometimes called affinity groups or birds of a feather, kind of depending on the decade. But they're focused either on like gender or race or parents. There's all different types of topics. There's kind of mixed evidence on what's most effective in the space. So again, I'm a big dork and we like research. So we aim to bring the research wherever we can find it. And that's the other great thing about the group. People might not know at the time that they know somebody to tap into, and so they're able to make those connections and share it after the fact. So employee resource groups is what ERGs are. Okay, thanks, Brett.